Alright everybody, so welcome back. This is building a dynamic website from start to finish. This is lesson number 14, I believe. Yeah, 14. We are going to come in where we left off on the last lesson, which we had pretty much set up the admin panel. Not 100%, but we've gotten it ready to be kind of molded into what will become the admin panel. So we have our admin folder, and we're going to be working pretty much exclusively in this folder from here on out, at least in this video. So let's go ahead and open our index, just because we'll be in here at some point. Let's go ahead and take a look at our page in the browser. So here's our admin panel. The first thing we want to do is take care of some aesthetic elements that will differ between the public side and the admin side. First off, we don't necessarily need a home page, a gallery page, a blog page, a contact us page, because the admin panel is not, this is for changing things and editing things. So let's flip back here. First things first, let's go to Functions, Template, and under the Atom CMS here, I just noticed I said CSS, not CMS. Let's change it to CMS. We'll probably have to do that on the front end too at some point. Apologize for that typo. You guys probably caught it though. So let's add on to this, and just kind of put a dash here. And type in, say, administration panel. Usually I shorten it to admin, but we have enough room here in the header. Why not? So I'm going to refresh the page after I uploaded it. So that gives a clear distinction between the two. Now let's go and take a look at our navigation here. Let's go ahead and create or keep home just for now. But gallery, let's change that to page manager, or let's just call it pages. And we're going to go ahead and just remove these other two links for now. And as far as page equals, let's call that pages. So for the admin panel at this point, we're going to have two pages, or two views, however you want to consider it. Save that, upload, refresh, F5, and there we go. Here's our new menu. So we have our home page, and if I click on pages, we're probably going to get an error or nothing. So we got nothing. Those of you using XAMPP, you might be getting an error at that point. So we need to create the pages page, that is. So what do we need to do? We need to think about what we need to do in this admin panel. We need to be able to edit the content of the page, the title of the page, basically everything that's in our database. So let's go ahead and open up our database. So we need to, for those of you using hosting with us or using hosting with cPanel, let's open up our cPanel. and you guys go ahead and log in with your credentials. I'm going to hide mine. Okay, so once in our control panel, we go down to phpMyAdmin and open that up. If you're using XAMPP, you need to open up your version of phpMyAdmin. And I'm going to open up the database that we're looking at. So in Pages, in the Pages table, we have ID, type, name, title, body, status. The only thing we really don't need to change, or at least I mean 100% no, we don't need to change at this point, is the ID, so we don't need to worry about that. But let's go ahead, or let's think about, if we look at the admin panel here, we have this blank page here. What do we need to do in order to edit the pages? We need to pull up a list of the pages. That's would be the first thing, so we can see what pages already exist, and we need to be able to edit them. We also need to be able to add a page if we want to. So first thing we're going to do, and what we're really going to focus on in this video, is pulling the list of pages and editing them. And then we'll get into adding pages a little bit later. Now we're going to kind of revert back to the way we were doing things when we first made the index on the public side. For the admin side, we're going to go ahead and use the include approach here instead of use that get page function. So let's go ahead and do include and if you remember correctly, we did content, content slash, and then we concatenated, use the PG variable that we're pulling from the URL, and then concatenate again and add the .php, close it with another single quote, and we're good to go. So this should look familiar. This looks similar to what we had going on when we first made the site itself. The reason I'm doing this is we need a little more control. These pages are going to be different looking on the admin panel, and I don't know, I could go into great detail on why we're doing this, but I'll wait because it's going to become apparent later on. With that said, let's go ahead and in our content folder, let's just go ahead and delete these three here: blog, contact, gallery, and just keep the home. And let's open up home. Let's save as to make a copy of it, so Control-Shift-S, and we'll call this pages. And let's change the header here to page manager. Change the comment up here. And we can really get rid of all this dummy text. And say save. Let's go to our home page here, and let's change this to admin, or we'll get a little more creative. We'll say atom.cms, and watch out because I might on accident do that CSS thing again instead of CMS. It's pretty, seems to be a habit of mine now. So atom CMS, and let's do an h3 tag below that. Something like that. Let's go ahead and we'll leave one paragraph of the generic text there just to fill it out a little bit. Let's go ahead and save this. Let's flip back to our browser. Actually, wait, if we didn't, we need to make sure we saved our index page here. And go to our browser, click on pages. There you go. Page Manager, Home, Atom CMS, Administration Home Panel, some generic blah blah blah. This could be, you know, a welcome to our Atom CMS, some instructions, whatever, blah blah blah. Maybe, I don't know. We don't know what we're going to do there. But for pages, we want to make a page manager. So what I'm going to do for now, unless we come up with a better strategy, is we'll do a kind of two-column approach where we'll have the page names come up on the side here and a form open up on the right. So in our pages.php in the content folder, let's go ahead and create a div. I'm going to give it a class, and I'm going to give it a class of col for column, and we'll create this later in the CSS. And this is something, I don't know, I think we did mention it, that you can use multiple classes. So we're going to give it a class of col, which is going to stand for column, and we're going to give it one more class, and we'll call it sidebar. Close that div, give ourselves some space, and to save some time, let's just go ahead and copy that and paste it again below. Let's go ahead and call this, we'll keep the class column, or col, and we'll call this, let's call this editor. Alright, now this may not make total sense to you just yet, but it's going to make sense. And those of you who watched the original series, you're going to see some things that we didn't talk about in there that are going to hopefully open up some doors in your mind on how to utilize divs, especially when thinking about the buckets that we made back then. But I won't get into that. So first, in the sidebar, we're gonna generate a list. So let's just go ahead and put that in there first. ul li, and each one of these list items is going to be a link. So we'll give it an href. Let's just put a £sign in there so it goes nowhere, and we'll give it a label of page name. So this is more of just an example so we can get the layout kind of the way we want it. Let's go ahead and copy this a couple of times, or paste it a few times underneath, and save that. Over here, what we're going to do is create a form, and so let's start by making form tags. Go ahead and close that, give yourself some space. we need to give it an action, which those of you who are not familiar with forms, the action in layman's terms is pretty much what happens. Where does this go when someone hits submit, or when someone hits the button, whatever we call it, whether we call it the save button or submit or whatever. What happens when this form is submitted? And for right now, we're just going to have it go to the same where it's at right now. So let's just put the pound sign in there for now. We're going to add something else here, which is the method. And we've dealt with the get array, which is how we're getting that parameter here from the URL, the get array. Now we're going to talk about the post array. So for method is going to be post. Now the one main difference between the two of these is that we are not going to send, we are going to be sending some information, and we'll be retrieving it in almost the exact same fashion we retrieve things from the get array, from the URL, except this information won't necessarily be as public. It's not going to be spit out through the URL. This would be what you would want to use when you're sending information, like somebody's name. If someone's registering for a website, you wouldn't really want their name and password and address and sensitive information being spit out throughout the URL up at the top. I mean, what if they did that and then walked away and somebody else sat down at the computer and saw that up in the URL? They could see all their information, blah blah blah. It's not a good idea. So post handles it kind of behind the scenes. We get the data the same way. Instead of using the get array, we use the post array. So all that'll start making sense sooner or later, but it's important that you make sure you put the method is equal to post. So let's go ahead and come in here, and we're going to add some fields. Let's refresh our memory here by going back to phpMyAdmin. So let's start with the title first, and then the name, and then the body. And these are going to all be text fields. So that's and if forms are all, if you haven't learned much about C or HTML, this may be new to you, so I'll try and explain as much as possible. But for creating a text field, we use the input tag, and we have to give it a type, and that is text. And right now we're going to give it a size, which the size here is characters, not pixels or anything like that. So how many characters wide is this going to be? And we're just going to make a default for both of these first two. We'll just say 30. Now, very important is this next property, name. And we're going to call this first one title. And that's the end of that. Now, this name property, and why I say it's very important, this is what we use when we go to retrieve the value. Much like we do over here in the URL, we use the get and then use page as our key. when we pull something from the post array, it'll be post, and then we'll use whatever the name we give each item will be the key. So title would be the key. Now we need to do a couple things to spruce this up so it doesn't look awful from the get-go. Let's go ahead and we'll make a paragraph tag and kind of wrap the input box in the paragraph tag. We might change this a little later, but for now this will work. And before the input field, let's go ahead and put in a label, which you can either just go ahead and start typing in the label, but there is actually a field called, or a tag called label, and you can take advantage of that if you want to be able to style labels a little differently. So let's just go ahead and do that. I don't always use them, but because they don't have any major value really, but so label, and we'll call this, we'll say page title, and let's put a space there because we want to have a space between the label and the field. And I'm going to go ahead and save and upload this, and I want to preview it. But just note, we haven't done anything, we haven't set up these classes yet, so we're not going to have columns or anything like that. Everything's going to be stacked on top of each other because we haven't done any CSS yet, so just keep that in mind when we go to look at this. But so let's refresh the page. There you go. There's our unordered list with our sample page names, and here's our form with page title and our input box that is 30 characters wide. So next thing we're going to do is the name of the page. So we can pretty simply here just copy this whole line here and paste it below, and say page name, and we don't have to change anything in here except for the name, which this one's going to be a little awkward, but the name is going to be name. Save that. And to keep this video a little shorter than most, looking at our table here, or our CSS table, I'm only going to focus on name, title, and body. We'll get into type and status and changing those a little bit later. So the next thing we need to do is we need to set up an area to edit the body. And we don't want a small text field for this. We want what's called a text area, and that's done with what's called the text area tag. And unlike the input tag, there is actually a start and close. But just like the input tag, we absolutely have to have a name. We'll call this body, and we need to give this a size, which we'll do the size in CSS later, but for now, just to teach you some old HTML, they do this in columns and rows. So calls for columns. And this is basically how many a column would be a character. So this is kind of like the size up there. So let's just do 30 for calls, and then rows. We want to make this box somewhat big, so let's just go with 8 for now, and we can maybe change that later. Let's go ahead and I'm going to copy this label here, or hold down Control and drag it, and we'll say page body, and let's just put a break tag, a BR tag here, so that that kind of sits on top. And let's kind of separate this here, clean this up a little bit, save it, upload it. Let's take a look at it, and once we've taken a look at it, then we'll work on our CSS. So go back to our admin panel, refresh the page, and there you go. We've got page title, page name, page body, and we've got a nice text field here to hold our body. Most of the modern browsers now allow the user to dynamically change the size of this, so you can disable this if you want, actually. But for now, let's just ignore that. So let's go ahead and work on our CSS really quick. So if we open up CSS, go to styles, and we're getting close to the point where we might want to start separating out some of our CSS into different files, but not just yet. Let's first create our our columns class, which we just simply called col, C-O-L. So dot col, and really all this at this point anyway needs to have is a float property of left. Save that. And what this is going to do is make the first one push left and the next one push left. And this is something that we didn't talk about in the original series. It's a method that wasn't as popular when I first started the series, but it became very popular, and I wish I would have been able to sneak it in there when we were making those buckets. And for those of you who haven't watched the first series, I apologize that you may not know what we're talking about, but instead of having to do all these wraps we did with the buckets, all we need to do is make sure that each one is floated left and they will sit next to each other. That cleans up a lot of code. So that's why I gave both divs the column class. So the first one is going to sit to the left and the second one's going to sit to the left. They're just going to kind of sit next to each other, floating. We don't need to float it right anymore unless we specifically want it to be to the right, but by nature they will just sit next to each other. So now we need to create the classes that we excuse me, that will somewhat individualize these two divs. So the first one was sidebar. And let's just give this a width, and we'll give it like, say, 200 pixels. So now that'll, these are going to sit next to each other. The sidebar is going to be at least 200 pixels, so that editor will be pushed out a little bit. Let's give it a border on the right, just so that we can kind of see the difference between the two. We'll probably get rid of this at some point. And we're going to make it very subtle. We'll make it 1 pixel dotted, which will make it even lighter, and a light shade of gray, like we'll do FD, FD, FD. That might even be too light to see, but that's fine. Tidy this up a little bit. Go down here and we'll make an editor class. And we can give a width to this, which we will, just for now. We'll need to manipulate this later. Let's just give it like a 450 50 pixels. I don't remember. I think we made the whole site 90 or 960 width. So we need to keep that in mind. So actually we can afford to, let's just do 500 pixels for now. So width, (500 pixels), and let's give it a minimum height. Just so it has some substance, depending on what gets put in there. If there's nothing in there, it'll at least bulk it out. Let's just make a minimum height of the same, 500 pixels. Save that, upload it. Let's take a look at what we've done. Refresh the page. Boom, we have our columns. So now we have this set up, and we're going to cut the video off here. What we're going to do in the next video, I was hoping to get to it in this video, but we've gone a little over. I'm trying to keep these videos a little shorter, in the half-hour range rather than letting them get over an hour long each. In that next video we will dynamically pull the page names and fill out the forms dynamically and allow for the editing. We'll get a lot done in that next one. It'll be pretty fun. So, and we'll have to actually add a save or submit button too, which we didn't do here. So thank you guys for watching, and look forward to seeing you guys in the next lesson.